A 19-year-old boy was stopped for riding a scooter, not a weapon, not a threat, a scooter. 54 days later, he was dead in a Florida detention center. And right now, there's a court operating in this country that most Americans have never heard of. It is not on the news, it's not being debated in Congress, but it's quietly making decisions that are stripping the last legal options away from hundreds and thousands of immigrants, one ruling at a time. His name is Royer Perez-Jimenez. He was 19 years old. He was from Mexico, and on March 16, 2026, he died in a detention center in Moorhaven, Florida. He is the youngest person to die in ICE custody since Trump returned to office, and he's the 13th person to die in ICE detention center just this year alone. So how did he end up in an ICE detention center? On the 21st of January, Royer was riding a scooter in Edgewater, Florida. Police tried to pull him over for crossing traffic lanes without using a crosswalk. He did not stop immediately and gave officers multiple false names. He was arrested and charged with 2 misdemeanors, providing false names and resisting an officer without violence. Now, 2 misdemeanors from a scooter shop, okay? A scooter stop, guys. A scooter stop. Now, he pleaded no contest, was sentenced to 30 days in county jail, given credit for time served, and transferred to ICE custody on the 21st of February. He was moved to Glades County Detention Center in Moorhaven, Florida on the 26th of February. Now, I want you to pay attention to what happened next, because ICE's own statement has been raising serious questions. Our intake medical staff evaluated Royer. He denied any behavioral health issues or concerns. He answered no to every suicide screening question. ICE has not confirmed whether he has ever been placed on suicide watch during his time at the facility. Now, on the 16th of March, approximately around 2:34 in the morning, a detention officer found him unconscious and unresponsive in his dormitory. Staff began CPR. Fire rescue arrived around 2:40 a.m. and at 2:51, 17 minutes after he was found, Royer Perez-Jimenez was pronounced dead. Now, ICE has called it a presumed suicide. The official cause of death remains under investigation. Now, I want to present it fully and fairly, obviously, because that's what this channel does, right? I said that in its statements, ICE is committed to ensuring that all those in custody reside in safe, secure, and humane environments. Comprehensive medical care is provided from the moment individuals arrive and throughout the entirety of their stay. Now, if we're being blunt, and we have covered this before, we have seen how these detention centers actually look like, okay? Irrespective or irregardless of the statements they make into the public. Independent reports and public records show that Glades County Detention Center, the Biden administration shut down this facility. Okay, the Trump administration reopened it back in 2025 April. In 2022, 17 members of Congress called for its permanent closure over escalating reports of abuse. Immigrants detained there have long described inhumane conditions, including verbal and sexual abuse. Now, in ICE's own press conference release that AP had to issue a correction on, ICE's initial statement got the arresting agency wrong, the date of the arrest wrong, and the nature of the charges wrong, calling misdemeanors felonies. Now, these are basic facts about a person who died in their custody. AP had to publish a correction after obtaining the actual arrest report. Now, Royer was not alone in dying that week. The same week he died, an Afghan immigrant also died in ICE custody in Texas. His family said he had been evacuated from Afghanistan after years of working alongside U.S. military forces. He was 41 years old. He died in the hospital after being detained by immigration authorities. So the Mexican government called Royer's death unacceptable and demanded a prompt, thorough investigations. Officials from the Mexican consulate in Miami visited the facility and requested documentation from the U.S. authorities. Now, ICE detentions deaths have been climbing rapidly, we know. 7 in 2023, 11 in 2024, and about 32 in 2025, and 13 already in just the first 11 weeks of 2026. So ICE is currently holding approximately 70,000 people in detention. We spoke about this on a previous episode. More than the double the number that just, 2 years ago. Royer Jimenez was 19 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. He was stopped for riding a scooter, and 54 days later, he was gone. That is not a statistics, that is a person, and his name deserves to be said out loud and for the news to cover it and cover it thoroughly. Now let's talk about the secret court, the BIA, okay? It is Board of Immigration's Appeals. Most people have never heard of it, and that's exactly the problem, okay? When an immigration judge makes a decision about your case, whether you stay, whether you get bond, whether asylum claims is valid, you have rights to appeal that decision. The appeal goes to the Board of Immigration's Appeals, the BIA. Think of it as the Supreme Court of Immigration's law. Whatever the BIA decides becomes the rule that every immigration judge across the entire country has to follow. It is small, it is quiet, it operates behind closed doors, and he has been completely transformed. Within 1 month of taking office, the administration cut the number of judges on the Board of Immigration Appeals from 28 to down to 15, nearly cut it in half. The first judge removed were the most recent hires, those appointed by Biden administration. The remaining 15 now are all Trump appointees. Okay, you get what I'm getting at there. Now, as a result of this transformation, in 2025, the BIA decisions backed DHS lawyers in 97 of the publicly posted cases. That is at least 30%. Okay, 30 percentage points higher than the average over the last 16 years. In 2026 so far, NPR tracked 21 decisions. DHS won 20 of them. The one case where immigration technically won involved a person who had already withdrew their appeal because they had been granted a different protection. In other words, the government has effectively won every single case. Let me put it in even more simpler terms for us to understand. If you are an immigrant who lost cash in the immigration court, who lost a case in the immigration court, and your appeal, you are now going to a board where the government wins 20 out of 21 times. Okay? Those are not ours. That is a war. A former BIA judge who was appointed by the Biden administration and removed by Trump said this directly. The administration came in this time knowing we don't necessarily need to have immigration judges in place. We need to have the policy in place, and the policy get made by the board, not by the immigration judges. So what policy has BIA made this year? They have made it harder for immigration courts to offer immigrants bonds while their cases are pending. That means more people are going to be sitting in detention centers like Royer while they wait, okay? They made it easier to deport people to third countries, not even their home countries, but any country the government chooses. And they tried to cut the window to file an appeal from 30 days to just 10 days. 10 days to find a lawyer, gather evidence, translate documents, file a legal appeal for people who often don't speak English, don't have the money, and are sitting in detention centers. There's a money grabbing machine system. So 5 immigrant rights organizations sued over that 10-day rule. A federal judge last week just blocked it, calling it unlawful and unenforceable. That block is currently in place, but the administration has not given up finding ways to narrow the appeal window down. That's been reported in PBS. The question that I have is, if the court that hears your appeal is the same court whose judges were handpicked by the same government that's trying to deport you, and that court rules against immigrants 20 out of 21 times, is that a due process or is it just formality? That is what's happening inside America's immigration system right now, not at the borders, not in the headlines, inside quietly. Share this video, subscribe to Voices with Nisa Qalbi. If you or someone you know is navigating an immigration case right now, check with a qualified immigration attorney. The rules are changing fast and the window to act is getting smaller and smaller. So we'll be back with any new episodes or any new updates. Until next time, I leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fi amanillah.